Happy Thursday, everybody. Chase here sent in a quick little sample from The Name of the Wind. It's an audiobook clip and said, I'm not looking for any feedback in particular. Pick it apart to your liking. So we're going to listen through and offer any and all feedback that we can to help him out. If you want to join in and you're not familiar with what all this is, we do this every Thursday, subscriber feedback. There's a form in the description. You can send in your own sample and it's free. If you don't want to wait, usually it takes 1 to 2 months to get to new submissions. You got a couple options. You can hop over to my website for coaching or join the booth buddies here. And if you're into audiobooks like Chase is here, you can check out the Audiobook Academy. Links for all that stuff is in the description if you're interested. Chase, let's do this.
It was felling night, and the usual crowd had gathered at the Waystone Inn. 5 wasn't much of a crowd, but 5 was as many as the Waystone never saw these days, times being what they were. Old Cobb was filling his role as storyteller and advice dispensary. The men at the bar sipped their drinks and listened. In the back room, a young innkeeper stood out of sight behind the door, smiling as he listened to the details of a familiar story.
Pausing really quick. Your pacing's great, my friend. Really relaxed, even pacing, that not rushed, not forced, but it's not so slow that I'm like, okay, come on. Good job there.
When he awoke, Taborlin the Great found himself locked in a high tower. They had taken his sword and stripped him of his tools. Key, coin, and candle were all gone. But that weren't even the worst of it, you see.
Cobb paused for effect.
'Cause the lamps on the wall were burning blue.
Graham, Jake, and Shep nodded to themselves. The 3 friends had grown up together, listening to Cobb's stories and ignoring his advice. Cobb peered closely at the newer, more attentive member of his small audience, the smith's prentice.
Do you know what that meant, boy?
Everyone called the smith's prentice boy, despite the fact that he was a hand taller than anyone there. Small towns being what they are, he would most likely remain boy until his beard filled out or he bloodied someone's nose over the matter. The boy gave a slow nod. The Chandrian.
That's right, Cobb said approvingly. The Chandrian.
Okay, nice. Great start. Like I said, pacing is really lovely. You're doing a pretty solid job with the character voices. And ta-da. So to start with, let's talk about performance. Then at the end, we'll talk through a few different technical things because I know you listed a few of those. Firstly, for performance, like I said with your narrator, the pacing is lovely. And I love that you're not pushing yourself to try to talk too quickly. I've already said it, but it's a good pacing there. The only thing that I would add, or the main thing that I would offer to you in terms of adding to your performance in order to dial it up, would be right now your narrator is pretty neutral and feels, if I'm being a little on the harsh side about it, your narrator feels almost like they're not invested in the story to the point of like maybe they're even disinterested almost. And so the difference there is the narrator, sometimes folks have this instinct, and I don't know if this resonates with you, Chase, but it has for other people, so I'll say it again just in case. The narrator of any story, be it a third-person narration like this one, or if it's third-person close, meaning it follows a character pretty tightly in terms of their point of view, or if it's first-person. In third-person narration in particular, a lot of narrators feel as though the narrator's voice should be neutral in some way. That it couldn't be further from the truth, in my humble opinion. The narrator, even if they're third person omniscient, needs to have some kind of an opinion about what's going on. And where do we get that opinion from? It can come from a couple different places. One, about the place, the people, the characters there. We can have an opinion about those different things, and we can comment upon them. So with this story here, we could sort of cast ourselves in the narrator role as like a storyteller who knows this place, knows these people, remembers this specific night. Maybe we're one of the 5 that were there and we can remember it. So if you're telling a story from that point of view, automatically you're implicated and you care about it. So Cobb here, the boy, we have a personal investment in them and their story as the narrator. So if we listen to this first little bit again, I'll do sort of an A-B comparison to further articulate what I'm trying to say.
It was felling night, and the usual crowd had gathered at the Waystone Inn.
So there, the usual crowd had gathered at the Waystone Inn. It's delivered fine right now, totally usable. This could be cut and print if you want. But if we wanted to make it more compelling, how do we feel about the usual crowd? Are these just the town drunkards? Are they the times that they are? So there's a lot of information in this. More than 5 isn't really expected here.
5 wasn't much of a crowd, but 5 was as many as the Waystone never saw these days.
So there, hey, we know this bar, we know the inn, we know the Waystone. And the usual crowd's here. The usual crowd. Do we feel like, oh God, here comes Jerry again? Or is it the usual crowd? These are my people. The usual crowd comes in, or the usual crowd was there. And then we talk about how many 5 is. You know, I know you're a city person, listener there. 5, admittedly, 5 is not much of a crowd. But you know what? 5 was all that was there these days. So in saying that, 5 wasn't much, but 5's as much as we could expect. Why is 5 as much as we could expect? And why does that matter to me, the narrator? And if I care about that, it's as much as we could expect. Is it because this town is under siege? Is it because the world is ravaged? Is there just like major financial catastrophe and no one can afford to come here except for these people? Whatever it is. And all those things, we'll call them given circumstances that we can pull from context outside of this, from the larger context of the book, allow us to have an opinion about it. And so right now, when the narrator's delivering that, the way it's being delivered here, 5 wasn't much of a crowd, but 5 was as much as you could expect these days. Perfectly fine, works, but it doesn't give me, the listener, that second layer of information that can be really exciting. If you as the narrator tell me, as an example, 5 wasn't much of a crowd, but 5 was as much as you could expect these days. All of a sudden, the way that that's being said, versus if I'm like, hey, 5 wasn't much of a crowd, but 5 was as much as you could expect these days. Both of those have an opinion and a point of view and some level of stakes in that number of people. But the way that they're delivered, the first one versus the second one, gives me, the listener, context as to why that matters. And so pulling that in overall with the narrator in particular, I think will really strengthen your read here. Then when we get to the characters, your characters are pretty darn strong overall, but similar to that, where the narrator needs a point of view, the characters already have a kind of point of view that you're using to a degree, but I think we can just go further with it, and I'll talk more about what I mean by that specifically in a moment.
When he awoke, Taborlin the Great found himself locked in a high tower.
So the name of that, Taborlin the Great, I don't know who that is. I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about him. And you can help us with that a little bit there. When he awoke, Taborlin the Great, or Taborlin the Great found himself. And then the circumstances of this thing. And granted, this is with another layer of this person is a character telling a story in this place. So maybe they've told this story hundreds and hundreds of times. Maybe this is the first time they've heard it. Who knows? Though the innkeeper has been noted as like, here we go again a little bit.
They had taken his sword and stripped him of his tools. Key, coin, and candle were all gone. But that weren't even the worst of it, you see.
Cobb paused for effect.
So here, this is kind of meta almost, because it's like a oral telling of a story within an oral telling of a story. But the way that this character is telling the tale, and then the narrator hopping in and saying he paused for effect. That he paused for effect is sort of a ghost of the writing built into it, meaning the word has to be literally written in the text. He paused for effect in order for the reader to silently understand, oh, this is a dramatic moment that this character is building in. Whereas in audio, you could just be like, it was all that was left. And that's why, and leave the dramatic pause there. Admittedly, if we were doing that in an audiobook, people might be like, what, did it break? What's going on? Anyway, but the way that the suspense is built in here, I think we can go further with, and the opinions of things. So right now, the way this is delivered, completely competent, really, really clear what's being said in a lot of ways, but I'm unclear how to feel about it. The situation that this character is in and the way that this character is telling the story are unclear to me. So is it, he found himself in a tower, all his stuff was gone, now I pause for effect, here we are. That doesn't give me a lot of context about how I should feel about it, but if I'm like, but then he found himself in a tower and all his stuff was gone, key, this, that, gone. And then, so we can build the tension and leave that tension in there, or suggested with the paused for effect. So here...
But that weren't even the worst of it, you see.
But that weren't even the worst of it, you see. He paused for effect. We could have that pause and the narrative moment suffused or pregnant with that tension. He paused for effect. And then...
'Cause the lamps on the wall were burning blue.
'Cause the lamps on the wall were burning blue. What does that mean? I don't know, but you can weave in that dramatic tension a bit there. Right now, it's delivered really, really cleanly, but the tension is lacking a little bit in my view. Or you, to say it another way, the tension could be much tighter. And then the...
Graham, Jake, and Shep nodded to themselves. The three friends had grown up together, listening to Cobb's stories and ignoring his advice. Cobb peered...
They're ignoring his advice. Is that a joke from the narrator? And ignoring his advice? Or is it like everybody ignores this old kook's advice? Nobody really cares what he's saying.
Cobb peered closely at the newer, more attentive member of his small audience, the Smith's Prentice.
Do you know what that meant, boy?
Everyone called the Smith's Prentice boy, despite the fact that he was a hand taller than anyone there.
Yeah, I think that those notes are pretty much all that I'm just going to be applying those over and over again, having a stronger opinion about things and investing more so in those opinions. So everybody called him boy, even though he was bigger than everybody else. And he's probably going to stay that way until he grows a beard or punches somebody out for that. Anyway, same stuff. Let's talk briefly about the audio processing and technical stuff. So right now, your audio sounds pretty clean overall, though the levels right now, you can do a little bit to help yourself out here. Because this character's dialogue is louder than the narrative moments, your narration is pretty standard, smooth, even, which is typical of most audiobooks. And this character is fairly loud, which makes a fair amount of sense. Now, the way to level that is to use compression and limiting to reduce the dynamic range. What that will do is take the loudest bits of your audio and bring them closer to the quieter bits, reducing the range between loud and quiet. It'll compress everything into a tighter band. So I'll apply some brief compression, normalize it again, maybe one more time, And now everything's a bit more even. So if we listen to just this brief little bit before.
In the back room, a young innkeeper stood out of sight behind the door, smiling as he listened to the details of a familiar story.
When he awoke, Taberlin the Great found himself lost.
So the volume difference between the two, or the loudness difference between narration and the characters, is less, meaning I don't have to sort of dial the volume in my head to go between the two, which is one small thing that will help you. Let's check one thing really fast. Yep. That's mostly, I was just checking the noise floor of your audio. Sounds good to me. Looks good in terms of the diagnostics that I just ran. But that little bit of compression will help just give it a little bit of a professional polish. But the other things that you applied overall are fairly solid. The only other thing that I would note is I'm unsure if you're removing breaths or not, but I don't hear any breaths in here, or they come up very rarely, like that one. So don't be shy about your breathing. I say this often, but breath is part of your performance toolkit. Don't hide it. Don't delete it. And if your breath is distracting you from the narration, meaning you're thinking, oh man, that was a loud breath, or I'm running out of breath, or these breaths feel weird. Your focus at that point is no longer the story. Your focus is your breathing, and that's the problem. I contend, full stop, that if anybody makes their focus telling the story, then it becomes simple, and we buy anything. Buy anything meaning we will accept any aspect of the performance, because if my attention as the storyteller is entirely upon telling the story and delivering the information as best I can, my breath will fall in line with that. I can breathe however I want as long as it is supporting the story. But if I'm focusing on my breath, that's a signal from my body to my brain saying, you know what? You're focusing on your breath right now. Let's refocus on the story, which can be helpful. So let your breath be free, my friend. Overall, great work on this. Lovely. Yeah. Thanks for sending it in. I look forward to hearing everyone else's work out there soon. And if, like Chase here, you want to join the booth, buddies, check it out down below. Ta-da. Until the next one, be well, everybody. And toodles.